This is going to go really good or really bad. Jordan Peterson versus Kyle Kulinski on the trans topic. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
The first time ever any...
What are you people? We're Americans. We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent. This is Middle America. We're not left wing, we're not right wing. We're just right. I just mess with you guys on a wonderful Friday afternoon. Night. Apparently the big homie Jordan Peterson landed an interview. No, I'll say it the other way. Kyle Kulinski landed an interview with Mr. Jordan Peterson. We have covered Mr. Peterson pretty frequently by our standards because he recently got himself banned on Twitter for violating their TOS because of the controversial statements he made about Elliot Page, formerly Ellen Page of Juno fame. And Mr. Peterson referred to the doctor that did the double mastectomy on Elliot Page as a criminal, got himself pretty exercised, and Twitter responded by suspending his Twitter privileges until he advances or repents or recants of his homophobia or whatever. Now, me personally, I disagreed with the ban on a multitude of different levels. First of all, I don't think Mr. Peterson said anything that warranted his complete removal from Twitter. I also think from a strategic level, and, I've got emails from you guys and things of that nature, and I appreciate all of them, folks saying that Twitter doesn't have a political disposition. That's ridiculous. They obviously do, and that's okay. That's okay that they do, because it's their company, but they obviously have a left-wing progressive bias, that's clear, and they suspended him. I disagreed with that on a strategic level because, as I demonstrated in the previous video, it doubled his sub count and it triplicated his viewer count, and it put Jordan Peterson on his home turf. Jordan Peterson is a great monologuer. He does great with monologues, and he does great with long form monologues, and he's massively persuasive in that arena. And so suspending Jordan Peterson puts him as the number one trending topic all over the world. And then it funnels a bunch of people to his YouTube account where he's playing from his strength. My solution would have been, no matter how homophobic or transphobic what he said was, to keep him there, because Mr. Peterson does not do well on Twitter. He was imploding on Twitter and doing a lot of damage to his own brand on Twitter. So strategically, I thought it was a massive error for we're going to now look at this discussion. So Kyle Kulinski landed an interview with JP. First of all, shout out to Kyle Kulinski for that. That could not have been easy to do. So congratulations to that. And congratulations also to Kyle for at least attempting to talk to Mr. Peterson instead of just talking about Mr. Peterson, considering I'm going to assume that Mr. Kulinski disagrees with Jordan Peterson's position on Elliot Page. So with that in mind, dear listener, we can have the great Tasco to thank if this is a great video. If it's a terrible video, then we can blame Tasco. That's how it works in Middle America. Okay, let's go. You guys know how we're going to do it.
So I noticed just the other day you were banned from Twitter. Now, I'm somebody, nobody can argue against my lefty credentials. Everybody knows I'm a man of the left. Having said that, my solution on this issue of social media censorship has always been, look, we need to expand First Amendment protections. And the way you do that is to regulate these big social media companies like their public utilities. So if you do that, then basically you're saying this is the new public square and people can speak their mind here. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, you can't, dox people or do direct threats of violence or anything that's actually illegal will remain illegal. But outside of that, you can't censor people just based on political opinion. So, I definitely wouldn't have banned you, suspended you, etc.
Okay. That is a very mature and just quite frankly basic American idea. And I think that that's eventually what's going to happen. But Kyle, my brother, JP is not the one you should be saying that to. You should be saying that to all of your friends who support the tyrannical curtailing of speech by these organizations. We continue.
But I do have a question about that specific tweet that did get you in trouble because, you said something to the effect of...
well, I don't know if it got me in trouble. I don't think I'm in trouble. Twitter banned me, but I don't consider that trouble.
That's fair enough.
See, that's important because as I've tried to explain to my friends, especially young people, yes, it's emotionally satisfying to be able to say that you booted Jordan Peterson off of Twitter, but he's not interpreting his banning from Twitter as something that harms him. He doesn't feel like he's in trouble from getting banned from Twitter. And that goes to buttress my point, which I got from Rig, which was he does his stuff on purpose because he knows the effect it's going to have, particularly on his YouTube channel, and by extension, the political outfit and the political ideas that he wants to put forth. I don't know if you guys remember this in the video, but there was a moment in the video where Peterson looks at the camera and says, let's see who cancels who when this is all over. So Mr. Peterson is extremely purposeful and crafty when he did what he did. And so that's why he's making pains to say, I didn't get in trouble, man. That tells me, like that part of the exchange right there tells me that the value systems are different. Millennials and young people getting kicked off of Twitter and suspended for Twitter is a major thing for them. Being told no is and look, again, I'm not going to win a lot of friends with this video either. Being told no is the end of the world for millennials. So they think that it's some major issue, but it really isn't. He wasn't in trouble. We continue.
Fair point. But you said something to the effect of, remember when pride was a sin and the criminal physicians...
And Ellen Page just had her breasts cut off by a criminal physician.
Criminal physician, exactly. So my question is the physician...
Of course, JP goes out of his way to say Ellen Page. Because the entire thing was about really dead naming. I think the thing that got him clipped was the dead naming. And Kyle is obviously trying to avoid that statement, and it didn't work. Give me a second, guys. My wife is calling me. We're back. Okay, so we continue.
Really criminal? If you agree that adults can decide to transition, then why would the physician be criminal? Don't adults have that right if they want to transition?
That's a good point. Ellen or Elliot is a grown-ass human being. I think this person's well into their 30s. So on what basis are you calling this criminal? That's a good question. I want to hear what JP says.
Not everything legal isn't criminal.
Okay. That was interesting. He took this is one of the things that I've learned from JP, and you should too. Think before you speak. You see how long it took for him to respond? He thought it through, and then he spoke. Very, very, very important. All right, we continue.
You said something to the effect of, remember when pride was a sin, and the criminal
And
physicians.
Ellen Page just had her breasts cut off by a criminal physician.
Exactly. So my question is the physician really criminal? If you agree that adults can decide to transition, then why would the physician be criminal? Don't adults have that right if they want to transition?
Not everything legal isn't criminal. And do they have that right? See, I would have left Ellen Page alone if she hadn't been parading her new abs in a fashion magazine.
See, again, so you could tell that JP is making a point to dead name her, right? You could tell he's clearly making a point to dead name her. Now, Tasco says, Jordan Peterson, words matter. Also, JP, when I said criminal, I wasn't really meaning criminal. Well, that's not what he said. He didn't say I wasn't meaning criminal. What he was saying is the term criminal is broader than just civic legality. Because we talked about this earlier where he said the SS troops were acting in accordance with the law, but he still considers them criminal. So I think he soundly makes the point about moral criminality. That's what he's saying. He's not saying that they're civically criminal, obviously. He's talking about moral criminality. And obviously, we agree with him in principle that there are moral precepts that, although they may be legal, are still, we would still consider that criminal. We continue.
How many kids do you think she can convince to convert? 1?
Yeah.
1,000? No, not, yeah.
No,
really?
I want to respond to that. I think that with the trans community, it's very similar to the gay community, where back when that first became a big issue, people thought, oh, if we talk about it, if it's in magazines.
Okay, so that tells us why he went so vitriolically after Elliot Page, because I guess she posted a picture with her with abs and his new mastectomy. And JP looks at that as an attempt to influence kids. And because of that, that's how he responded. Now, if you guys have been able to read the tea leaves, and it doesn't take a genius to spot this, this is where the right wing is going to be going in the midterms in 2024. They have picked the community that they want to target, and it's specifically the trans community. I've been calling this out. This is who they're going after. And the LGBT community at large is doing absolutely nothing to interface with that obvious strategy. They're doing nothing. I suggested that GLAAD get on the horn with Fox News, Tucker Carlson, who's the gay dude? What's his name? Ruben, whatever. And I suggested you guys need to make the rounds to address this, because these guys are going to try to demonize you guys. And a bunch of people were telling me about how it wasn't fair and that straight people take their kids to see strippers too. Which, again, as I said in my previous video, is a completely childish way to respond to that. I am not talking about what's fair. I'm talking about what's going to stymie the flood of this obvious tactic that these folks are going to be using in the midterms and beyond. It's mind-boggling to me that the right wing is telling us what their goal is. The right wing is telling us what their strategy is going to be, and the response from the left is, we shouldn't have to justify ourselves to anybody. Okay. But again, as I said, the leaders of the progressive movement are childish, privileged people who've never. This is the first time the levers of government have been used against them. So they don't know how to do things like that. They're operating on entitlement. And I'm blown away by this. He's coming out and telling you that he's dead naming this woman, and he specifically targeted him. My God, because he feels that this is an attempt to influence the minds of children. Okay? That's what he believes. All right, we continue.
Or whatever, we're promoting kids to go down that path. But really what happened is people are who they are. And if they're gay, they just decided to be like, yeah, I'm gay. And they were just more open and honest with themselves. So I don't think you're promoting people to do that.
No,
you're
that's
just
not
saying,
what happened.
if you
You're
are that, it's
completely
okay.
wrong.
Okay. Well,
You're utterly
I'm
wrong.
listening. No,
Really?
I want to.
Okay, I need to look at this again.
I think that with the trans community, it's very similar to the gay community, where back when that first became a big issue, people thought, oh, if we talk about it, if it's in magazines or whatever, we're promoting kids to go down that path. But really what happened is people are who they are. And if they're gay, they just decided to be like, yeah, I'm gay. And they were just more open and honest with themselves. So I don't think you're promoting people to do that.
No,
You're
that's
just
not
saying,
what happened.
if you
You're
are that, it's
completely
okay.
wrong.
Okay. Well,
You're utterly
I'm
wrong.
listening.
There's
I'm
nothing
listening.
about that that's right.
So explain.
Well,
I'm
there's been
listening.
an absolute look. One of the reasons that I opposed Bill C-16 in Canada to begin with, this pronoun compelled speech bill, was because I knew perfectly well what was going to happen when we introduced confusion about gender identity into the public sphere.
So that's how Jordan Peterson kind of shot out into the mainstream, was that he opposed this bill that would, in Canada, which requires you to use trans pronoun under pain of, prosecution. And he stood up against that, and he exploded as a international figure. And again, the things that get me about this community and the LGBT community at large is the inability to read the tea leaves, the inability to look past what's happening on the surface. Okay? On the surface, you see this bill and you see people opposed to the bill, and the instinct is to say, what a bunch of homophobic, horrible, terrible people. Look at this homophobe, blah, 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 blah. But then he explodes internationally because of this one jihad. Prior to that, he was just some no-name anonymous professor in Canada. Why did he explode into international stardom based on this one issue? And what does that tell you about what people really believe? Because as I've tried to tell people on the left and my LGBT friends, you have created an environment where the people who are on the fence, who are opposed to you, but like could be convinced, you've created an environment where those people cannot voice their concerns, their doubts, their confusions, their need for clarification. You've made that impossible for them to speak. So the only people that are speaking are radicals like Jordan Peterson and Libs of TikTok, or people that agree with you. And there's a whole bunch of people in the middle between those two extremes that you will not let speak. And because of that, when a guy like JP does what he does, all these people are saying, yeah, he's saying what I was thinking. They might not be as extreme as him, and they might not come to the same conclusions, but the initial salvo, this is confusing, this naming convention stuff is weird, what are we talking about here? A lot of people have that feeling, and that's why a guy like him can blow up. What does that mean about how people will vote? Think, how are people going to vote? But I don't see people reading those tea leaves. Look at what happened with, people are going to laugh at this, but do what you want. Look what happened with the Lightyear movie. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm telling you that people do not think the way we think they think. And we have to convince them. I'm very happy that Kyle has this dude on his show because Peterson is letting this stuff out of the bag. He basically says he came after Elliot Page specifically because they had the audacity to put that in pictures, and he feels that in attacking her, he is defending the children that Ellen Page can influence, Elliot Page. And look, that's going to be the shtick. It's going to be, these people are out to corrupt our children. And I'm telling you, there has got to be a counter-narrative, a sane counter-narrative from the community that can get in front of Dave Rubin, Tucker Carlson, etc., and speak their piece. But there's no movement happening there. No movement happening. Let's see. We went with a different mic now. Hopefully this mic will be better, inshallah. Okay, we keep going.
Now, the argument was that if we left people with gender dysphoria alone to make their own way and stop torturing them, that we would decrease the mental health load on those individuals. And my analysis said,
well, yes. I don't know about leave them alone. I don't think leaving anybody alone is good for their mental health. Obviously, leave them alone means stop trying to beat the hell out of them. When you find out they're trans and you had a sexual relationship with them, don't kill them. I think that's what leave them alone means, which, by the way, I don't care what you guys say. You absolutely, before you get into a sexual relationship with a person, should absolutely tell them that you're trans. Absolutely. And if you don't, I think that that's pretty terrible. But having said that, murdering someone, which happens to trans people quite frequently, actually, and being able to get away with it using the trans I lost my mind defense, Mr. Peterson, is probably what they mean when they say leave us alone. Conversely, though, I'm jumping on that phrase because I don't want trans kids left alone, actually. I want them around a loving, supporting community. Now, loving and supporting is different for different people. That doesn't look the same for everybody. But when trans people and LGBT people were talking about being left alone, I promise you they weren't saying leave us in solitary confinement. They were saying stop killing us. And I think that that's a valid concern.
Clinician was that for every one person of that sort that we hypothetically save, we doom 1,000 more as a consequence of confusion and social contagion. I knew the literature on psychogenic epidemics. They used to call that mass hysteria, and it's a literature that goes back about 300 years. And often when you introduce social confusion, you can produce a psychogenic epidemic, especially among gender.
Okay, so when he's talking about psychogenic epidemics, he's talking about this thing where, because it's and remember, this guy's a Jungian, right? So he believes in probably a collective consciousness, and he's essentially saying that the trans agenda, and look, guys, this guy is laying out the playbook. He's laying out the playbook for how this is going to be. We haven't seen this really come out in full force yet, guys. Trust me, it's coming. But what he's saying is essentially that all these laws are part of a grand conspiracy, or maybe an accident in the most literal philosophical sense, that is now going to hold sway on the collective consciousness, particularly among kids, and sway them to be trans when they otherwise would not have been. I don't think you can make a comparison between trans people and gay people as far as saying, I always knew I was this and now I'm just out. Because what we're talking about here is chemically altering a person's actual makeup, or physically permanently altering a person's physical makeup, and that is not the same thing as somebody coming out of the closet. So there are nuances here that all of us have to deal with, particularly when you're talking about people's children. I just saw a bill on the table where they were talking about kids as young as 13 going to be able to get hormone blockers, etc., without parents' consent. That's a mistake. Number one, it's completely fucking immoral. But strategically, that's a mistake. Because that plays right into the hands of these people are coming for your kids. Again, I don't understand it. That's what they're saying. They're showing us the playbook a mile away, and we're not doing anything to contradict that narrative. It's mind-boggling to me. It's absolutely crazy to me.
It's adolescent females who are most susceptible to it. So I thought, oh, well, what's going to happen is we'll produce a psychogenic epidemic of gender dysphoria among adolescent females. And that is exactly what's happened.
Hold on, let's see that again.
Isn't on on psychogenic epidemics. They used to call that mass hysteria, and it's a literature that goes back about 300 years. And often when you introduce social confusion, you can produce a psychogenic epidemic, especially among, generally it's adolescent females who are most susceptible to it. So I thought, oh, well, what's going to happen is we'll produce a psychogenic epidemic of gender dysphoria among adolescent females. And that is exactly what's happened. And it isn't the fact that we've freed up people who are, in doubt about their identity to be who they are. That may have happened in a tiny minority of cases. It's absolutely and definitely the case that we've doomed thousands of kids to brutal, mutilating surgery and premature sterility. And we've done that on the altar of our hypothetical moral virtue and compassion.
Okay. He's saying this has happened to thousands of kids where the kids have been sterilized and kids have been having their bodies hacked. Here's what I'll say. I don't know that that's happened to thousands of kids in America. I will say that Lupron, which is one of the hormone blockers that has been used, is used to castrate sex offenders. That's true. And in one of the interviews, I just saw the documentary with Matt Walsh. The surgeon did say that she did a mastectomy on a 15-year-old. Okay, but for Jordan Peterson to say that that's happening thousands of times over, you guys know how I get down. I need to see the data. I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying he's wrong. Obviously, I have a bias on this particular topic, and I understand that. But I've always said anytime a person makes a claim, where are the numbers? So I'm being exactly the same way on this situation. Yes, I'm biased towards trans people. I understand that. But you guys have seen me for 4 years on this channel. Anytime I make a point, I back it up with numbers. Anytime somebody makes a claim, I always say to source it. So Jordan Peterson, if you believe that thousands of kids have been chemically castrated and have been physically having their bodies reoriented or whatever, where is the data that says that? But the argument that he's making is that the trans forces at work with their horrible agenda is introducing social confusion into our zeitgeist, and adolescent girls are most susceptible to that. And so because of that, now we've got a rash of these trans kids, but they're not really trans. They're just victims of the social contagion, and immoral people like Elliot Page are at the vanguard of that. And that's why he had to attack it. He had to attack it. He did it for the kids. He did it for the kids. Okay. But he's also against what he calls Marxism, and there are certain. He's after these trans people because he loves kids. Now look, I'm not saying I can read the man's heart. He's an extremely deep thinker. I'm just saying there seems to be some inconsistency. That's all I'm saying. Okay, we continue.
Look, I read a corporate analysis of the trans surgery industry last week. Growth rate projection for you lefty types and your anti-corporatism. Growth rate projection, 15% per year. Invest now. A $350 million business as of 2022, projected to expand to $750 million by 2027. No moral hazard there? There's plenty of moral hazard there.
What
and
percentage?
That surgery is absolutely...
Wait. Hold on.
The trans surgery...
I gotta hear this again.
It isn't the fact that we've freed up people who are, in doubt about their identity to be who they are. That may have happened in a tiny minority of cases. It's absolutely and definitely the case that we've doomed thousands of kids to brutal, mutilating surgery and premature sterility. And we've done that on the altar of our hypothetical moral virtue and compassion. Look, I read a corporate analysis of the trans surgery industry last week. Growth rate projection for you lefty types and your anti-corporatism. Growth rate projection, 15% per year. Invest now. A $350 million business as of 2022, projected to expand to 750 million by 2027. No moral hazard there?
Okay.
There's plenty of moral hazard there. And that surgery
I gotta
brutal.
I have to find that.
So,
I have to find what he is talking about there, because he just talked about he said he was reading something from some growth rate business thing. Does anybody know what JP is referring to there when he reads off those numbers? Hey, Candy Apples, good to see you.
Industry last week. Growth rate projection for you lefty types and your anti-corporatism. Growth rate projection, 15%.
Where is that, Jordan?
Happen in a tiny minority of cases. It's absolutely and definitely the case that we've doomed thousands of kids to brutal, mutilating surgery and premature sterility. And we've done that on the altar of our hypothetical moral virtue and compassion. Look, I read a corporate analysis of the trans surgery industry last week. Growth rate projection for you lefty types and your anti-corporatism. Growth rate projection, 15% per year. Invest now. A $350 million business as of 2022, projected to expand to 750 million by 2027.
Okay, I'm looking.
No moral hazard there.
I am desperately looking to validate that information. Okay, so this is Market Watch. Okay, so Market Watch, gender reassignment surgery, market size. Gender reassignment surgery, market size, share, global industry outlook by types, applications, and end user analysis. Global gender reassignment surgery market size is estimated to grow at CAGR of at least 8.4%, with 209 million USD billion during future forecasts of 2022 to 2027. Year-over-year growth rate for 2022 is estimated at 6.97 by the end of 2027. The gender reassignment surgery market, and it is poised to grow by $209 million during 2021 through 2027, progressing at a CAGR of 8%. Blah, 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 25 vendors, yada, yada, yada. Okay. It doesn't exactly say what JP says, and I'm doing this off the cuff, but that's an angle I'd never really heard before. And, I had somebody in the comment section say, oh, Jordan Peterson's a deep thinker. Ha, ha, ha. Yes, he is. He's a very deep thinker. And this is, again, the immaturity of our generation, that anybody that we disagree with, we have to say is not intelligent. I just heard Jenks say that Elon Musk wasn't intelligent. Anybody we disagree with is not intelligent. Again, how does that help us? I'm a Christian. The devil's a real bad guy. He's the arch nemesis in the entire scripture. The first thing that the Bible tells us about the devil is that he was crafty, and that he was more crafty than all of the other creation. Because when you're dealing with someone that you perceive as being evil, the first thing you need to know about them is, what are their strengths? Jordan Peterson's intellect is absolutely his strength. So again, if you want the emotional high of being able to say that a guy like that is dumb, go for it. But he's going to put you right through the wood chipper. Did you notice how Kyle didn't respond at all to the corporate ramifications of gender reassignment surgery? I mean, we're talking about a lot of money there. And now what we're looking at is we've got an entire industry. And look, secular talk. We criticize capitalism. This is a big thing on the left. And there are absolutely very bad, nefarious capitalists behind this stuff, not because of their ideology, but because they're going to get a buck wherever they can find a buck. So for Kyle to just completely ignore the economic ramifications of why people would have incentive to promote this practice to underage children, I think is a mistake. But make no mistake about it, this guy and the people that are influenced by him, they're setting this whole thing up, guys. He's telling you everything in the playbook right now. This is where he's going to go. And there better be some sort of response to that. I'm going to be digging into this industry now because, look, as of May 9th, they were talking about 8.4% growth and, 209 million US dollars in growth. That's a lot of money. That's on Market Watch. That's not some right-wing outlet. That's Market Watch. So that's an issue. That's an absolute issue I am concerned about. But what he's essentially setting up is there's two groups of people that are pushing the trans agenda to destroy your kids. One group are the crazy, mentally ill, left-wing idealists who want to turn America into a hellscape and infect your child with this mental contagion. That's one group. Then the other group behind them are the evil corporate butchers who want this promoted because it's a burgeoning industry and they're at the head of it. That's what he's setting up as the narrative. So for Kyle to just ignore the financial part, especially when he called it out and says you left-wingers always worried about corporatism, is a problem. But I still think Kyle's doing a pretty good job here because Jordan Peterson is he's letting it out now. You could see it, his face, his countenance. He's very he really believes this stuff. I'm not going to say like he's convinced himself, but he is clearly convinced that these are bad actors and harmful to children. Wouldn't you say with acceptance that the industry is naturally going to grow? Yeah, I would say that. But anytime that there's a financial stake in any situation to the tune of hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, we have to take into account the motivations of the people at the top of those industries, because as we know, a lot of you progressives has pointed out that the higher you get and the more lucrative it becomes, generally speaking, the more corrupt the industry is, and the main players in the industry are also corrupt. I think Peterson is in denial over his own trans attraction. I don't think that he's in denial. I think he really believes that this is detrimental to kids. I mean, the guy's a clinical psychologist. So he's operating from a perspective that, again, influences how he's interpreting all this stuff. All right, we continue.
And that surgery is absolutely brutal.
So what percentage of the population do you think, in your conception of how this is unfolding, what percentage of the population do you think is going to end up being trans at the end of this? Do you think like one day it's going to be like 70% of the country is trans?
Well, we know already that about 1 in 5 adolescents now identifies, to use that hated word, identifies.
He uses terms like that hated word, that hated phrase. Why is that a bad phrase? I genuinely don't understand why that term is so hateful to Jordan Peterson. I'm sure there's some reason, but hopefully Kyle asked him that question. But he's used the term hateful a couple times here in this discussion, particularly around trans. And I don't know if it's a way for him to get something out that he wants out or what, but okay, the hated phrase.
As part of the hypothetical LGBTQ plus community. So it's 1 in 5. I don't know what the upper limit is. There's a consulting group in the UK now that's claiming there's 150 different genders. There's actually, I suppose, 7 billion different genders if you want to get technical about it, because everybody's temperament differs. But I don't know what the upper limit is. And I have no idea what the upper limit is for this surgical intervention. We'll see. But I don't find it the least bit acceptable. And if you think that your compassion is demanding that you extend your pity to the LGBTQ plus community at the cost of sterilizing children, you should think again. You're on the wrong side of this, and not in a trivial way.
I would appreciate if you don't ascribe beliefs to me that I don't have. Remember, my original question was about...
Well, you said earlier in this question that
I said
you
Elliot Page is an adult, and so do you think that he has the right to
Yeah, but
transition. That was the original
you made
question.
some comments after that. Yeah, but as a star and a public figure and a model for emulation, she also has the responsibility not to entice confused adolescents into a catastrophic decision before they have the maturity to make that decision.
I just have to say, Jordan, I think it's a little bit of a moral panic. I just don't see some sort of, frenzy.
Yeah, but Kyle, JP is talking about sterilizing children. Again, I don't know if Kyle Kulinski has any kids. I don't get the impression that Kyle Kulinski has any kids. He never talks about his own children. And I'm sorry, but this is another one of the detriments of this movement. As I said, it's led by mostly cis white millennials. And I'm sorry, a lot of millennials don't have children. So Kyle is speaking from a position of complete ignorance, where JP is talking about sterilizing children and breast augmentation and psychological contagion that could affect your child. And then we've got other people saying, like, for example, you combine that with this comment, shout out to Tom Anthony, but in the context of this discussion, this is how people with children are hearing what you're saying, Tom. My point is, you may not, but when you say lessons on sexuality should be left to the parents, there are many parents should be left to the parents. There are many parents, there are many parents where their lesson on sexuality is, if you ain't straight, you're worthless and going to hell. Now, I agree. That's a lot of what a lot of parents do. But what is your solution to that, Tom? The solution is that the state should tell my kids about sexuality. Look, prior to all this COVID-19 craziness, my kids were homeschooled. And there's a multitude of reasons for that. But one of the major issues is that I know that I have a particular worldview, and that institution does not share my worldview, and the institution was not constructed to promote my worldview. The institution was constructed to promote their worldview. And I don't have any problem with them. They can, if you want to send your kids to there and have them inculcated with that worldview, fine. But I specifically made sure that my kids are homeschooled and they get my worldview on everything, not just sex and sexuality. But guys, if you don't have kids, this is where Kyle, his affect is off here, because JP is appealing to, remember, I said this before in the previous chat, who was it that stemmed the tide and got Donald Trump to beat Hillary Clinton? It was suburban white women. Suburban white women carried that vote. And it was black women who helped push Biden over the line. Okay? So this is their strategy. They're going after suburban white women. Do you see what's coming up now? You've got Libs of TikTok, who has documentary evidence of the LGBT folks trying to corrupt children. Then you've got Jordan Peterson, who is the intellectual side, and whether or not you think he's intelligent and you think he has bona fides, which again, if you don't think Jordan Peterson is intelligent, you don't know what intelligence means. I'm sorry. He's eminently published. He's a recognized expert in the field. It's just more millennial ridiculousness to say that Jordan Peterson is not an intellectual. Ridiculous. But anyway, he is providing the academic validation for this entire yarn, and he's doing it with some passion. Meanwhile, Kyle is calm as a cucumber, and that may work as far as the isolated debate, but I am telling you, the people who are going to vote and influence the midterms in the general are not going to like Kyle's affect here, because it's very lackadaisical. It's very dismissive. Jordan Peterson has talked numerous times about the butchery, the surgery, things like that. You've got to address that with the appropriate affect for women who have children. But because Kyle doesn't have children on his own, he's not understanding what's happening. And by the way, LGBT people, if you think a lot of white dads are cool with this, you're also wrong. They're just not going to say anything to you because they don't believe in arguing. They're just going to fuck you up at the voting booth.
Okay, what would you consider
to become trans?
What? First of all, that's a hell of a way to put it.
What?
Why don't you take a look at the increase?
Kavanaugh went to Harvard. Is he intelligent too? Absolutely. I don't know if you've been watching the news recently, but Brett Kavanaugh, among and 5 of his closest friends, just made absolute history in this country. So look, whether or not you agree, Thomas Jefferson was brilliant. All the founding fathers were brilliant men. They owned slaves. They were still brilliant men. Saying that these people are not intelligent helps nobody. If Jordan Peterson was dumb, believe me, he would not have the followers that he has. Trust me. Hitler wasn't dumb. JP's not dumb. But keep telling yourself that. Keep telling yourself that. Right now, in my opinion, Jordan Peterson is playing. Look at Kyle's face right now. Look at Kyle's face. Kyle is playing to his audience. He has no idea what's happening underneath the surface right now. He doesn't get it. He thinks if he stays calm and that Jordan is all exercised, Jordan's going to look like an idiot. But I'm telling you, to people with children, that look right there is not good. I'm mad at him. And I mostly agree with Kyle, but I'm mad at him right now.
And a public figure and a model for emulation. She also has the responsibility not to entice confused adolescents into a catastrophic decision before they have the maturity to make that decision.
I just have to say, Jordan, I think it's a little bit of a moral panic. I just don't see some sort of, frenzy of
what
people
would you
wanting
consider-
to become trans.
I do another channel. I'm not promoting the other channel. But one of the things that was really interesting to me that I didn't know about was a satanic panic in the 80s. And there was this story being told that these young kids who were listening to death metal, and they wore all black, they were taking kids into the woods and killing them and doing satanic rituals and shit. It was just ridiculous cartoon clown stuff. Do you know that they actually ruined real people's lives with that bullshit story? You have got to take it seriously, because what we have now that we didn't have in the 80s are vehicles by which you can spread moral panic, like TikTok. So you can say, oh man, it's just a moral panic. But that suburban mom, when she sees this and hears him and then watches Lives of TikTok and hears nothing on the other side, that's going to create a story, and people vote their story. That's how they vote. So this is one of the consequences of underestimating your enemy. Because I can look at Kyle's face. He thinks he's winning. I don't believe he's winning. He's winning and he's losing, because these two individuals have completely different agendas. But this is what happens when you underestimate your opponent. I believe that JP knows exactly what he's doing. And I don't believe that Kyle knows what he's doing at all here. He's winning. Let me make this clear. As far as an analysis of what's going on, aesthetically speaking, Kyle is winning. To me, who I've literally watched hundreds of debates, participated in a bunch of them. So I'm looking at this as a debater. Of course, I got you. But as far as how people are going to vote, this is a disaster of an interview. This, again, I said it before, it's cis white males who are privileged, who don't have any kids, don't have any experience, and have no fucking idea how other people think. That's the look on his face right now. Holy shit. Y'all are in trouble. Trans people specifically. In trouble. Because if you don't think these people are going to turn on you, you're wrong. They will turn on you. They absolutely will. Hillary Clinton's already talking about it. I might play the clip. This is horrible.
What? First of all, that's a hell of a way to put it.
What?
And compassion. Look, I read a corporate analysis of the trans surgery industry last week.
In your conception of how this is unfolding, what percentage of the population do you think is going to end up being trans at the end of this? Do you think like one day it's going to be like 70% of the country is trans?
Well, we know already that about 1 in 5 adolescents now identifies, to use that hated word, identifies as...
Okay, I just got to do this one more time. Do you think Ben Carson is smart? Ben Carson is literally a brain surgeon. Ben Carson is literally a brain surgeon that has done surgeries that are so unique. Like he's got like a 1% accomplishment rate as far as people being able to do what Ben Carson was able to do. But Ben Carson is also dumb. So everybody at the top of their field, Ben Carson, dumb. Brett Kavanaugh, dumb. Dr. Peterson, dumb. Everybody's dumb. Jake Cougar, he's a look. Country Rose, we're just having fun. But I mean, come on. I mean, guy's literally a brain surgeon. Literally a brain surgeon. He's dumb. Everybody's dumb. Oh my God, help us. This is why we're gonna lose, guys. I said it. It's gonna take us 10 years. It's gonna take us 10 years to figure it out.
Part of the hypothetical LGBTQ plus community. So it's 1 in 5. I don't know what the upper limit is. There's a consulting group in the UK now that's claiming there's 150 different genders. There's actually, I suppose, 7 billion different genders if you want to get technical about it, because everybody's temperament differs. But I don't know what the upper limit is. And I have no idea what the upper limit is for this surgical intervention. We'll see. But I don't find it the least bit acceptable. And if you think that your compassion is demanding that you extend your pity to the LGBTQ plus community at the cost of sterilizing children, you should think again. You're on the wrong side of this.
Okay, we've got to address that. He has said over and over again about sterilizing kids. What I'd like Kyle to do is say, how many kids were sterilized? Where is this report? What hormone were they given? Etc. 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 Because he's making this nightmarish claim. Take it seriously and engage with him with the appropriate emotion. Don't just wave it off and say it's not a big deal. Even if it's not a big deal, we've got to get him out of his own mouth to say that. Don't just wave it off.
Not in a trivial way.
I would appreciate if you don't ascribe beliefs to me that I don't have. Remember, my original question was about...
Well, you said earlier in this question that,
I said
that
Elliot Page is an adult, and so do you think that he has the right to transition? That was the original question.
You made some comments after that. Yeah, but as a star and a public figure and a model for emulation, she also has the responsibility not to entice confused adolescents into a catastrophic decision before they have the maturity to make that decision.
I just have to say, Jordan, I think it's a little bit of a moral panic. I just don't see some sort of, frenzy of people wanting to become trans.
First of all, that's a hell of a way to put it.
Why
don't you take a look at the increase in surgical interventions and see what you think? I mean, how many do you think is too many?
Again,
if we're talking about
I'll answer your question. The argument is it used to be very repressed because that's very outside of the tradition and the norm and the standard, and that now when you sort of let the boot off the neck a little bit.
What used to be suppressed?
The entire LGBTQ community. I mean, it was very recently we even got gay marriage in the United States.
First of all, they're not a community.
Well, yes, they are. What are you talking? this stuff right here, it really, it makes me think. I don't think that JP has a gay bone in his body. I really don't. I don't think he's attracted to trans people. It's clear to me that he resents that group of people. He clearly resents them. And it's mind-boggling to me that a guy with his credentials and bona fides, and it's ironic to me that a guy who, and maybe I'm assuming stuff here that I shouldn't assume. I'm looking at this like, bro, do you not see how hateful? Not necessarily the words, but the combination of everything. The thing that bothers me about this kind of affect with Jordan Peterson, and like I said, I believe he's doing this not as a grift, but as a political strategy move, which, it looks like progressives only think that there's two people in the world. Honest actors who want to save the world like Bernie Sanders are grifters. That's it. People are only in it for the money. People, they don't have any other category of person or motive. I understand what motive. My view on Peterson's motive is that he's angling this to convert these discussions into political capital, and I think he's going to be very successful doing it. But do you have to do it with this amount of vitriol? What people like Jordan Peterson don't get is that you don't just have one audience. There is a following of you by LGBT people. By the way, like, I know some of them. I mean, I can't publicly say it because that'll make them heretics in their little group. But there doesn't seem to be any recognition on Jordan Peterson's part that he could be psychologically seriously damaging young, impressionable people who follow him and look to him as a father figure. It's that angle of it that really, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it hurts me to think about. It hurts me to think about a 16-year-old kid who has gotten a lot of really good benefit from that book. People say whatever you want to say about Jordan Peterson. That book has helped a lot of people. But can you imagine being a young LGBT person and being helped by that and following JP? And look, people make fun of JP for crying on camera. I think it's great because it balances out some of the masculinity stuff that he puts out there. It really balances out, and I think it's great. But when he said that thing about the plus size girl, it's like, dude, you don't think that there are girls that listen to you and follow you and look to you as a father figure? Now they're looking at themselves in the mirror and now hating themselves because their father figure, said that they were undesirable and shouldn't be on a magazine. Like, that part of it is what gets me. Like, politically, I understand what he's trying to do, I think, but this part right here, like the just, why does it have to be done this way? To me, there's going to be a lot of kids that get chewed up in the jaws of this debate as collateral damage to me. So that's the only thing that gets me on this thing right here.
Well, you understand the point I'm making.
No, actually, neither I understand it nor you, and that's why we're delving into it. First of all, they're not a community. That's just a catchphrase. It's a buzzword. And I'll tell you something else, that almost all the kids who are undergoing surgical intervention, the clinical literature is absolutely clear on this. 80% of kids with gender dysphoria identify as homosexual when they mature. 80%. And that means the vast majority of people who are being converted surgically are gay. Now, how is that an advantage to the gay community precisely?
That's a good argument. But again, Jordan Peterson, this is like the 5th time he's talked about radical surgery on kids. Kyle, make him produce this data. Make him produce it. If he's got the data, fine. Concede the point. But I don't think he's got all the data in front of him. And make him say, no, I don't have information on thousands of kids getting these. But you're allowing this guy to give his followers, you know how many people are going to clip these sections from YouTube and say, look at these people, they don't care. He mentioned a bunch of times, he never contested it, they just don't care about your kids, blah, 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 blah. Terrible stuff. Challenge that number.
No, see, I'm not taking a position in any way, shape, or form on the kids, because I don't know the first thing about this to comment on the kids. Well, but see, that's why we're having this conversation, though, is because my original question was about
kids.
The adults and what your take is on the adults. And it sounds to me like, let me ask you guys, would you ban transition surgery for adults?
Kyle, my mind is so blown by this. Kyle, the entire yarn that they're spinning to go after LGBT people in the midterms and the general is that they're going after kids. That's the narrative. He told you at the beginning. He's mad at Elliot Page because of his influence potentially over kids. That's what they're setting up. And you're sitting there going, Well, are you against transition surgery for adults? That's not the point. Adults transitioning are not going to get white suburban women to the voting booth. Oh my God.
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, really. We're paying a big price for it, and I think that it was.
Wait, so he asked if gender reassignment surgery should be illegal for adults.
Yeah, really. We're paying a big price for it, and I think that it was. It was an act of stunning hubris to conduct the first trans surgery procedure.
Kyle.
First of all, they're not a community. That's just a catchphrase. It's a buzzword. And I'll tell you something else, that almost all the kids who are undergoing surgical identify as homosexual when they mature. 80%.
Guys, if 80% of the people that are having these surgeries as children grow up and identify as being gay, or they had gender dysphoria, because there's a discussion in the psychological community in regard to trans, as in, is it a gay person who, because we're in a heteronormative seats and Laban, they believe that in order to accomplish what they're trying to do, that they have to be the opposite gender so they could be with the person that they really want to be with? That is a discussion. That they're just gay, that it goes away, so we didn't need to do any chemical or hormonal or radical surgery. That's the point that he's trying to land, and Kyle just ignores that. Well, that's a very important point, Kyle, but JP is animated right now, and he just came out and said that he's considering banning it for adults. Okay? So, I'm sorry, but you guys hear me all the time. My body, my choice is a ridiculous argument to justify abortion, because obviously the body being affected is not the woman's body. But Elliot Page is a grown-ass woman, grown-ass man, whatever. That's their decision. It's literally only affecting their body. And yeah, he's also allowed to post whatever he wants on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. And it's my job as a parent, JP, to intercept that. And if I think that it's something destructive, have those conversations with my kids. I'm their parent. It's not Elliot Page's job to parent my kids, JP. So why don't we invest in putting the energy into making these people better parents, JP, if you're really concerned about the societal contagion? Those are also solutions. Yes, publicly castigating these people so that you can sort of knock them off of the pedal of influence, which is what he admitted to doing. Sure, that's a strategy, JP. Another strategy would be, how about you go after parents? The thing is, though, guys, if you went after parents, you cannot convert that into votes. But when you're dealing with a bad economy and you're dealing with a ridiculous housing market, and people are spending $400 at Walmart when they used to spend $120, and there's this rising sense of panic and anxiety. We have seen in history that human beings will find a group of people to ventilate all of their fear, etc. on. So this is a great strategy to get the people you want in power, but are we willing to pay the human cost of what that's going to entail for the minority group of people who are going to be propped up as the cause of all of our suffering? Because I don't know if you've seen it right now, the Russia is the cause of all of our suffering has officially gone away. I can't believe that nobody else sees what's about to come around the corner.
And that means the vast majority of people who are being converted surgically are gay. Now, how is that an advantage to the gay community precisely?
No, see, I'm not taking a position in any way, shape, or form on the kids, because I don't know the first thing about this to comment on the kids. Well, but see, that's why we're having this conversation, though, is because my original question was about
kids,
the adults, and what your take is on the adults. And it sounds to me like, let me ask you a question, would you ban transition surgery for adults?
Mind-blowing.
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, really. We're paying a big price for it, and I think that it was an act of stunning hubris to conduct the first trans surgery procedure. And it's not obvious to me at all that it's been a net social good.
But aren't there some people that are obviously trans who were born in one body, they feel like they're in the other body, and when they're an adult, they can make the decision? And then even from just a freedom and liberty perspective, shouldn't they have that right? Even if they do it and then they regret it, shouldn't they have the right to try it?
It's a good question. I mean, it's a tricky one, right? Because there's all sorts of surgical enhancement procedures that are it's not obviously appropriate to make them illegal. And I don't know exactly where the cutoff line is, so to speak, and that's partly why we're having a public discussion about it. But this entire argument, in many ways, is stated so idiotically that it almost defies description. I mean, what do you mean, feel like you're in the wrong body? Well, what kind of measurement is that? No, hang on a sec. There are rules for these sorts of diagnostic decisions. Mm-hmm. Okay. The rule is that you have to make a valid and reliable diagnosis. That's if you're diagnosing depression or anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder or cancer or anything like that.
Yeah, when I was at the hospital, before they diagnosed me with major depression, they asked me about 350 questions, 90% of which was about how I felt. So I don't understand where he's going here. Like, are we in... This is one of the things that happens. You know, I say that the left is too emotional. And I agree. Progressives, we're not ready for prime time. We're not ready to run the country because we're too emotional. But my conservative friends, to me, are almost on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where feelings don't matter at all. Well, depression is a feeling. Anger is a feeling. I mean, hell, if you have an injury, I've got a pretty bad hamstring, probably tear along with a hairline fracture on the other, whatever. But when you go to the hospital, they try to measure you by your pain threshold. They say 1 to 10, how much pain. These are all questions about how he feels. So the left to me is completely dominated by their emotions. and needs to mature. And the right, to me, seems to be completely dominate. The ultimate value of the right seems to be this sort of left-brained logic, facts, mathematics. Facts don't care about your feelings, and I agree they don't. But that doesn't mean that feelings aren't pertinent or important. Feelings are important. And so getting that balance, JP is not communicating well in my view, and it's crazy because he's a massively emotional guy. But whatever, we continue.
Like that. There are standards that you have to abide by in order to make a diagnosis, in order to fulfill the obligations of your professional college. If someone comes to you and says, I feel like I have lung cancer, that is not sufficient grounds upon which to formulate a diagnosis, much less proceed to surgery. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, what do you mean by feel? What is that? Is that an emotion? Is it a motivation? Is it a philosophical conclusion?
Okay, that's fair. You can't say I feel like I have lung cancer and then remove this guy's lung because he feels like he's got cancer. But again, lung cancer is a defined physiological condition. We don't have a sort of chemical whatever in the brain that we can identify and say, that's 100% of the reason why this person is trans. So we do have to go at some degree, at some level, by how they feel because it's a metaphysical phenomena, JP. Like cancer is a physical phenomena. Gender dysphoria is a metaphysical phenomena. So to me, those aren't the same thing.
What is it?
Let me explain to you what I mean. So I've been doing my show for about a decade. And about 2 or 3 years into doing my show, there were, some stories here and there that I covered about the trans issue. Somebody who is trans reached out to me and explained to me in a very straightforward way, yeah, look, I was born biologically female. I feel like I'm biologically male. My reality never lined up. Well, I'm just explaining what they said, and then you can respond however you'd like to respond. And they told me as soon as I got the surgery, changed the way I dressed, changed the way I appeared, I felt phenomenally better. And so that's why, at least for me, this was the answer. Now, I think it would be incredibly arrogant for me to say back to that person, no, you shouldn't do that, or I know better than you do for yourself. Now, that's not to say that every time somebody does this, it works out well, of course, because everybody's an individual. But in some instances, that's the answer. So, me as a simple outsider, I just look at it and say, hey, whatever floats your boat, and if it works, it works.
Look, most of the time, my attitude is you can go to hell in handbasket any way you choose if you're an adult. Now, this problem is complicated and compounded by the fact of the necessity of medical involvement and the ethics on the medical front. So when you asked me about how that should be regulated, my answer was I'm not exactly sure about that.
Yep,
although it isn't obvious to me that it's obvious to me that the trans surgery enterprise has gone way too far, thousands of people too far. And I'm certain that it's harmed exponentially more people than it's helped.
All right, guys, what you just saw was a teaser clip from my podcast with Dr. Jordan Peterson. So you have to see the whole thing. I don't want anybody to think, oh my God, this is out of context or that's out of context. No, the full thing is available to watch, totally unedited. You have to check it out. There's 2 ways you could do that. Number 1, sign up on Substack for free.
Okay.
Get the full audio version of the podcast, which drops.
I think Kyle won that exchange relative to his home audience. And I think that JP won that exchange relative to his goals and aims. Unfortunately, JP's goals and aims are a lot broader and bigger than Kyle's were. And I fear that JP has successfully used Kyle to continue to fuel the right-wing fear-mongering, panic, quasi-manufactured anxiety. I'm saying this as a person who was born and raised in right-wing evangelical culture, who has now, by God's grace, been given a bunch of trans people to know, to love, to see their concerns, etc. And so I have an affinity for that group of people. But I also know the thinking. I also know the thinking of the other side. And I'm just telling you guys, this was disastrous. There's got to be more diversity in the community. You got, and I'm not gonna say everything that I really think, because I myself am not trying to promote any panic, but if I was in the LGBT community right now, I would be absolutely fucking furious at GLAAD. I would be absolutely furious at the leaders of this community. The fact that these people can come out on these platforms that are going to get them far reach, and they can show you right from the gate what their plan is. They're showing that right in front of you, and you can't do anything about it. You're not doing anything to address it. To me, is absolutely unforgivable. It's unbelievable to me. I'm going to set the clock at 5 minutes. You can call in if you disagree with me. If you disagree with me, you can call in because Middle America is not an echo chamber. So I only take people who disagree. So I'm going to put the timer at 5 minutes. And if we don't get any takers by then, that's okay. I will just close up shop and take my shower and play my Madden and watch more Handmaid's Tale. Try to understand my sisters. There you go. That, let me see. The link is in the description. Not in the description. I'm lying to you. I'm about to text you guys the link. All you have to do is click on the link, and it's self-explanatory what to do after that. So there you go. So there you go. If you want to chat, if you want to disagree with any of the points that I made, go for it. Michelle, I would say that you're a progressive. Like I said, I think most people on this issue think exactly the way you think, Michelle. It's just they're terrified to say it because, you know why. You know why they're terrified to say it. But it's obviously a horrible strategy. I will say that I'm very happy that Kyle at least extended a hand to talk to JP. I think that's a sign of maturity that we need. When you have people like Tucker Carlson that have Jimmy Dore and the others on his show, but then you turn on CNN, MSNBC, and it's completely monolithic, I'm telling you, it's not a good look. I think I'm talking Slim Shady is who I'm talking to. Slim Shady in the house. Can you hear me, Slim? Slim.
Hi, my name is.
Who?
Slim Shady.
Okay. Talk to me, Slim Shady. What are your thoughts?
Well, it was an eye-opening experience. The hard part about watching these reaction videos, I want to watch those two talk uninhibited. I don't want to watch you I'm not talking shit, but you're pausing every sentence and you're inserting your whatever you think. It's very hard. I want to watch. So, do you have the original link to this, or can you? Yeah,
I'll put the original link in the chat. Did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I have thoughts, man. It was really good. I applaud Kyle Kulinski at least to do it. I think he's getting a lot of love from his girlfriend lately to get a lot of airtime on,
Yeah.
An unsaid. Yeah. It's kind of weird, actually. It's kind of.
I'm not gonna lie. It's a little awkward. It's a little weird to me, but yeah.
I don't care about that as long as this is sunlight is the best disinfectant. I want to see these conversations. I think people will, get to listen to these kinds of things and formulate their own opinions. And as a dad, it's very simple. It's very simple, man. This is the part that people are, they don't, you get it. I know you get it, but people don't. If you have kids, you spend so much time of your day. People that don't have children, look, I'm not a better person than you. All I know is that when you do that kind of thing, you spend 24 hours a day taking care of kids. And if you have multiple kids, like just gets it's exponentially crazier. And
Yep.
then you're spending all this time taking care of them and trying to raise them right and teach them to be good, upstanding human beings and loving people and the right, the balance between the left and the right. And then some people come in, they sweep in, and they're just trying to, well, when you're at work, trying to teach their kids to be this or that, and to influence them at that level to the point where they like so. This
In
is
your
so bad.
in your mind, Slim, do you think there's a dichotomy between being a trans person and being a good, loving person? Do you think that those are mutually exclusive?
No. And by the way,
What we
I'm the
just
same
saw in
guy.
the discussion.
I'm sorry, we got cut off with the internet lag.
Well, what's I'm trying to zero in on what your actual problem is, because you're saying that. So you're saying if one of your kids says, "Hey, I'm trans," blah blah blah, you'd love them, you'd support them just the same. You wouldn't try to tell them they're not trans. Like how would that work? Like, what are you trying to say?
Sender, I'm M Death fan. I'm the same guy. I'm Doug Johnson, frankly.
Okay.
I'll say my address if you want, but I don't want any hate mail. No, I'm just saying that like I know my kids so much. I spend so much time with them on a daily, on a day level. Like I wake up in the morning. When the kids get up, I get up. When the kids go to bed, I go to bed, and I have a little free time somewhere in between. So I know them better than anybody. And when I send them to school, when I go to work, the only reason that they go to school and they go to day camp is that I have a couple hours, or maybe 6 to 8 hours or less, to do my job to make money to pay for things while they're getting educated. So this is a social contract. So the idea of public school is a social contract where we came up with this idea like way back, like a long time ago, to pay taxes, to pay for schools, to teach our children while we're working.
So can I ask you? Do you believe that in public schools right now, or in America at large, that there is a concerted agenda from the LGBTQ community to influence children specifically? Do you think that there is a self-conscious agenda from that group to influence kids?
Are you saying, okay, so on a macro level, that's a hard line? No, that's ridiculous.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't tell you were crazy. I mean, like Steve, for example, answered the question. Yes, he says he believes that there is a purposeful, concerted effort to influence kids from the LGBT.
Can I expand upon that, though?
Sure.
Can I expand upon that? Because, so on a macro level, like what you're saying, every school comes in and the curriculum is X, Y, Z. You come in. No, it's a little more subtle than that. It's there. It's absolutely there. So it's, if you work in a corporate world, HR is like, okay, so schools in America are very similar to HR in America. And they don't even call it human resources anymore. They call it people management. Have you heard about this?
Mm-hmm.
People management. Yeah. So these people, it's like this weird type of instruction gets like filtered through to people management, HR departments. If you've noticed, I work for a company. I work for a software company. I'm not going to say what. I've never heard any political bullshit in emails for years. I've been working for them like 7 years. All of a sudden, I start getting these emails recently. Like it's very, they jump on the Pride Month bandwagon. I'm not saying that I don't care about your personal decisions. Like I'm going to be straight here, right? Fuck your personal decisions. I don't care what you decide to do. I love that you have the ability to have your decisions, to be able to do that, to make your own decisions. It doesn't make you a better person. Your sexuality doesn't make you a better person.
But yeah, and I've got other calls. But what I'm asking you is, so you do believe that not that every single textbook and whatever. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you would agree that you believe that there is a concerted effort by LGBT groups in this country to influence the minds of children.
You have to convince me otherwise with all the
Okay, now
evidence
what
I see.
if I were to say, okay, what is your evidence, Slim? What would you, off the top of your head, where would
No,
you direct me to get that evidence?
this is I'm Death Fan. This is Ascender. This is Slim. You want me to pull it up? I gotta give me a little while, but I mean, it's everywhere. Right? It's all
No,
around.
just tell me like where are you seeing this most prevalent?
What libs of TikTok? I mean, that's just the most. That's just the most famous. But
So libs of TikTok is one. Okay. Okay. I appreciate your perspective, and you were very respectful. I knew it was you, but yeah, you could
that's
have
funny.
you could have said a lot more, but you held yourself back. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, be respectful.
All right, cool. We got other callers. Okay, caller JT, you're next.
What's up, buddy? I had to add the T this time so you didn't get me confused.
My brother. Okay, let's go. How you feeling?
I mean, listen, man. I gotta say, I gotta admit, man, I agree with the last caller. Because I do feel like there is a concerted effort to push this agenda upon our children. I do actually agree with that. You
Okay,
see it a
now
lot.
where do you get where do you get that from?
I'm
Like
gonna, I'm
what
gonna
what
give you, and
made
I'm gonna give
you?
you an example. I'm gonna give you a good example.
Yeah.
Perfect example, right? With this, the senator a couple of days ago who was caught twerking on actually not even caught. She did it openly on TikTok. She wants to promote pleasure-based sex ed in schools, right? And promote this like inclusive transgender queerness. I'm paraphrasing obviously, but she even admitted that, and she's supposed to be a senator for Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And she even admitted that she wants pleasure-based sex ed in school. Man, if you don't get the hell out of here with that, I've never heard the idea of you want to have pleasure-based sex ed in school for children. That's nonsense. You don't do that kind of stuff, man. Like, kids are meant to be kids. You're supposed to give them sex ed in a sensible manner. And then the idea of, okay, well, everything's got to be inclusive, and you have to understand their queerness, and you have to allow kids to
Shut
be
the
who they
fuck
are
up.
at a very young age. Now, that's not to say that you suppress what a child is at a young age. You allow them to become their own person. You allow them to express who they are.
Uh-huh.
But just keep this in mind, okay? When I was a kid, right, I used to love Godzilla. So I'd pretend I was Godzilla, right? Because I saw it on TV and I thought it was cool, right? But now what we do is, because we all know that children are so impressionable and they are in fact products of their environment, okay? We glorify and we blast on every form of media that we possibly can. And this is anecdotal, of course, but you can see it yourself. In every form of media possible, we display and blast the idea of the whole LGBT, however many letters are our community, right? And children latch on to that. And so when you have someone you have a boy or a girl at like 5 years old who says, well, I think I'm a girl and I'm going to start wearing pink dresses. Well, I think I'm a boy and I'm going to start dressing in overalls, and then they start doing it. It's one thing when kids get to explore themselves. It's another when you try to mold that child and their whole mindset in that manner to make them believe that that's who they are.
Would
They
that
may very simply. Go ahead.
would this issue influence your vote? Would let's say you're looking at two candidates and they're pretty close, but one of them you perceive to be pushing this agenda? Would that be a significant enough influencer for your vote?
Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Because and here's
It's
why.
it's
And
that
here's why.
important to you. Yeah.
Yes, and here's why. Because I can tell you right now. The side that's already pushing this knows that people who are part of the LGBT community will always vote blue. So when you get them while they're young and they're ingratiated into that style of thinking, into that way of thinking, they will automatically grow up thinking, that's the side of the aisle who supports me. They support me. They're the ones who are going to upbuild and uplift my way of life, the way I live. 100%.
So what is your would you agree that gender dysphoria is a real phenomenon that people
Yes. 100%.
genuinely? Okay.
Yes.
So let's say we have a kid in that situation. What do you since you believe that it's a valid mental state? How would you say that we should care for that child?
The same way you would care for any form of a mental issue. You would do treatment. You would do therapy. You would I don't mean that you put them into a room and you do some kind of cruel experimentation to burn it out of them or shock it out of them. No, I mean you got to be first off is also the loving element, of parents that you have to understand the situation that's going on, and you have to make sure that you will be willing to put the resources and the time and the understanding, and of course do your own research to make sure that you find those sources to help these children to get through the situation that they're dealing with. I will say this.
Yeah.
I will say this. I don't think it's just gender dysphoria. I do believe that occurs, but I also do strongly believe that you do have children who, and adults into this, and who've grown into it now, who are so heavily, what's the word I'm looking for? They're so heavily influenced. I can't think of a stronger word.
Sure.
That's blasted with them in every sense, in every manner, through their phones, through the radio, through music, through media, through movies, in every facet you can, that they blast it with them in their heads so much that they become ingrained into them. Do I believe that gender dysphoria is real? Do I believe that a lot of these people suffer from that? Yes, because obviously we see that mental illness is on the rise. I will, however, say that there is a significant portion that are, in fact, being, I don't want to say this word, but I can't think of another word that is strong enough to exemplify it, but I truly do believe are indoctrinated. Indoctrinated is not probably the word. But
that's what you believe. You feel like there's a brainwashing indoctrination campaign targeted at the youth, and that some of it is ideological, but you think it's a ploy to sort of secure blue votes because that group almost exclusively votes blue. Is that pretty much your?
Well, I would say that's most of it. I wouldn't say indoctrination is the right word, but
okay.
I mean, if you were to use the term indoctrination, I wouldn't necessarily fight it. But
I indoctrinate my kids. I mean, I understand that people have a negative connotation of the word, but doctrine simply means teaching. So to indoctrinate something is to take your teaching and put it into somebody. So everybody's getting indoctrinated. It just depends on who. So I understand what you're saying. One last thing before I let you go, because we got another caller. Do you follow Libs of TikTok on Twitter?
I don't have Twitter. I don't follow Twitter.
Got you. Okay, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, buddy.
No problem.
All right.
Take care.
Cool. All right. I got my homie Jay. Jay, talk to me, man. How you doing? What are your thoughts?
Is that me now?
That's you, bro.
All right.
I didn't want to put out your whole name, but go ahead.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm from West Michigan, man, and we're a lot of conservative Christians here.
Yep.
And I've stepped away from that over the last probably 10 years. I'm 42 now, and I held a lot of those views that you've heard here, and I understand it. Like, traditionally, we all grew up male, female. That's how we make more of us, right? I understand people can have the fear that, oh no, if everybody's gay, no reproduction, whatever. It's not like everyone's going to experience this, but I look at it an older way. The Catholic Church still uses some of the ideas of the sacred feminine and the sacred masculinity. Like, I'm a man and woman because a man and woman created me.
Right.
So, like, in modern American masculinity, we want to, like, stuff all the feminine qualities of ourselves, I think. And there's something about male masculinity, this toxic masculinity, which I think is, like, sometimes when women are masculine is a lot of toxic masculinity. It's the shadow Jungian stuff. It's a lot of that, and it's missed because of our obsession with social norms or whatever. It's engineering our society to maybe be more accepting, which is, I guess, more Christ-like in the end, right? Let's accept and be loving.
Yeah. Do you feel, specifically if we're talking about trans, do you have a problem with chemical, hormonal / radical surgery type treatment on minors prior to 18?
I would say for sure. I mean, if you even go back to Let's Go Ridiculous, your Silence of the Lambs, right? The John Hopkins, they were doing the transition surgery in that movie, and Buffalo Bill's psychological makeup was the reason that they wouldn't accept him into the program even then. So even in that really ridiculous fictional realm, it's like mental health is a serious issue.
Yeah.
I've dealt with it most of my life. I mean, I deal with depression. I have all sorts of things going on, but it's more than just a mental health issue. It's why do we suppress so much humanity to the point where I don't know, man. Like,
so you don't think so you don't take the position that it's crossing a line to do it with kids.
I would say no, don't do it because they're not of an age. Just like I couldn't receive mental health treatment because it wasn't considered feasible. It wasn't legal. It wasn't right for me to receive treatment for a mental health disorder, even though I was molested as a child and lived with PTSD my entire life,
Wow. Yeah.
And so
that's a good point.
There's a stigma attached to people who don't see things the way that the vanilla, like 70% of the pie, And so I understand that from my own perspective. So I don't believe that we should do this to children. But, with Peterson's perspective, right? Like I respect him because he is an intellectual. He is a very smart man, but you also have to I do this thing where I kind of remove the left-right thing, not to plug somebody, but Richard Grannon, this guy I listen to, he does a lot of psychology and generalized stuff, but like life coaching level.
Yeah.
And he talks about the reason we have this left-right and this binary is because we are left and right. We have two eyes, two hands, two ears. It's like so far back within what we are that we don't even address it anymore. Like the sacred feminine and masculine qualities. Like the Star of David is the chalice and the thorn, right? And I think that's the only representation of that in symbology that shows wholeness of man. Like all of us are this quality, and we miss that because of all these other things.
I got you. That's a unique message, man. I appreciate you for coming on, Jay. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Looks like we're about to land a plane. During the Helsinki Pride event, there was a drag queen reading a storybook to kids 6 to 10 years. There are a few right-wing agitators saying it's grooming. I'm trying to put together what is the point of, because when you're in drag, that's like for an event, right? Why can't you just come to the school as you normally are? Why do you have to show up in your costume, essentially, which is probably an offensive term? My understanding of the drag community is that it's something you do in an event. It's something you do at a club. But I could be wrong about that. Drag could be, I'm always going to identify as a man, but I'm going to dress as a woman completely. I'm not sure, but I'm not exactly sure what the angle is. I think even more, I ask myself the question when I see these drag queens reading to these kids, I say to myself, what is the net benefit for the community by this being done? And I only see negative ramifications to that stuff happening, if I'm honest. I only see a negative response in totality when that happens. Okay, Country Road says drag is a performance. It's not the same as trans. Okay, well, if it's performance, why do you have to go to the school in your costume? Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, most people are not going to run into drag queens unless they're going to those shows, and you have to have a particular type of disposition to get to that show. Grooming is a meaningless moral panic buzzword of the month. Yeah, Mark, I think you're completely wrong. I think you're completely wrong in that it's not meaningless. Now, whether it's true or not is a separate discussion, but whether or not it's a meaningless phrase, that's not debatable. That phrase has been weaponized, and that phrase is going to translate to probably hundreds of thousands of votes. I don't know if you heard or not, but there are people where this is going to be a front page issue for them. And whether or not you believe that that's wise or the best thing in the world, we've got to deal with the electorate. Okay, so it's meaningful to people who will vote. Drag queens shouldn't wear costumes around kids, so people shouldn't wear suits and ties around kids. People shouldn't wear clothes around kids since clothing is an expensive costume. Yeah, Ben, that completely ignores the obvious elephant in the room. Those folks are societal anomalies. I'm not attaching any moral value to societal anomaly, positively or negatively. But you have to understand that if you're a societal anomaly, that means by definition you're going to be a minority, in which case, take it from a minority, there are different rules for you that you cannot apply to the majority. And as I've said before, this is one of the main reasons that progressives are going to lose. It's because it's led by people who don't understand what it is to be a minority. They don't get it. You think this is a front page issue with the economy? Well, I think that the Democrats are doomed, economically speaking, on the economic front, right? Because whether it's rational or not, people are going to hold Democrats accountable for the terrible economy. The narrative is going to be Trump was killing it on the economy. Then the China virus happened. And then you guys initiated these lockdowns, which really were not necessary. You destroyed the economy. Then you handed the ball off to Joe Biden, who completely wrecked the economy. So now we're going to need Republicans to come in. So Democrats are not going to be able to run on the economy. So that's off the table. That's the greatest weakness that Democrats are going to have. And so the Republicans are making this, they've created this issue almost out of whole cloth. And the LGBT community, unfortunately, in my view, is helping them. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that progressives are immature. A lot of us don't have children. And so while that makes great for your personal life, it handicaps you in being able to understand the mindset of people that do have children, like Michelle, who, along with everybody else, is as liberal as the day is long. But now that she's got kids of her own, well, things are different. And so what I'm thinking through is, how is this helping influence the people that I need to influence in order to secure things like housing, employment? If I've got a trans friend and they're a badass at work, I want them only worrying about their bonus. I don't want them worrying if their boss finds their Facebook page, finds out that they're trans or did some crazy shit at a bar, and now all of a sudden we can fire you because my current state is an at-will employment state, and etc. So those are the things that I'm worried about. So when I see the trans reading thing, I go, okay, how is that going to get me that vote? That's where I'm coming from. Yeah, Country Rose. It is irrelevant that Libs of TikTok is a Christian fundamentalist landlord. That's completely irrelevant. That's only relevant to you and a very, very small group of people. Libs of TikTok is massively influential, and the left is doing nothing to stymie that influence other than doing things that make her more influential, like doxing her, so that she can get on Tucker Carlson, play the victim, rightfully so, and get she got a 300,000 sub bump from Taylor Lorenz's attempt at doxing her. So again, these ham-fisted draconian measures that get taken by so-called progressives are indicative of the fact that these are privileged people who don't know how to operate and compromise with people. Grooming becomes meaningless when you use it to mean any and all extended interaction between LGBTQ plus or even drag performers, regardless of how objective or harmless it actually is. It's way off the mark. Nicholas, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's logically coherent. It doesn't matter. All that matters is who's going to tell which story and which story is going to have the heaviest influence, period, end of story. That's it. And right now, the groomer moniker is working. It's working. And I'm trying to tell you guys, when people of a normal disposition, and when I say normal, I mean the majority disposition that have kids, see this stuff and there's no corollary against it, then the groomer thing is in play and it's working very effectively. Right, Nicholas. So all I care about, Nick, is the weaponization of the term groomer. I don't care if it's logically coherent. I don't care about any of that. All I care about is what do people believe and what is the engine that's driving their vote. That's all I care about. And anything that does not promote me getting that vote passed for housing for trans people or employment security for trans people, if it doesn't work toward that goal, then I don't want to do it. Period. End of story. Then it doesn't matter if it's logically coherent. You're defending the right being loud and wrong. Why should we kowtow to the right? They're wrong. Call them wrong. Yeah, Ben, that's because you have white privilege and you think that that's the way the world is supposed to work. Hey, Ben, we've been saying that the police are wrong for killing us on camera. And you know what? It still continues to happen. It doesn't matter who's wrong or right in a democracy. What matters is who gets the most votes. Full stop. You, Ben, it's immature to say the end goal be damned, strategy be damned. It feels good to call bad people bad, so I'm going to call them bad. Great. Call them bad, but Ben, you're not the one. You're not trans. You're not a woman, and you're not a person of color. So if you lose in all of this, you get to grandstand and say, I'm going to call you wrong, and I don't care if your argument is logically coherent or not. I don't care. I'm going to bet to say you're wrong, because you don't stand to lose anything. That's why I said this is a movement led by cis white entitled males who do not know how to function at a disadvantage. So you're saying we don't need to kowtow to the right. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Susie with the two kids, one of them in daycare, one of them in third grade, she's voting. So we need to convince her not to vote for Nazis that are going to destroy our friends. We absolutely need to kowtow to them. Absolutely. You just don't have anything on the line, Ben. So you can speak the courage of your convictions, because when all this shit blows up, it's not going to be you. They're not going after the Ben Webb. They're not going after koala bears and setting up koala bears as the sum total and reason why everything is fucking up in this country. Whether it's economically, whether it's war, whether it's the family and all the rest of it. They're not going after you, but they're going after a specific group of people. So you get to moralize and say all that stuff because you don't have anything at stake, bro. You don't have anything at stake. So you get to say all that dumb shit. It's dumb. We need votes. I don't know how else to say this. We need votes. And anything that's not going to get me trans housing, trans protections, this fucking trans psycho thing where you get to kill a trans person, blah, 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 blah. I need votes. I need votes to reverse all that shit. I need federal protection for trans people. I need federal protection for housing, federal protection from employment. That's what I want. Literally, it's leave these people the fuck alone. If they're a badass at work, let them be a badass at work. I understand the complexities of the sports stuff and the bathroom stuff. That's not on my docket. What's on my docket is we don't get to kill them, we don't get to assault them, we don't get to fire them, we don't get to evict them just because they're trans. That's the laws I want passed at a federal level and enforced with extreme prejudice. And we're not going to get there with this nonsense. We shouldn't have to go on Tucker Carlson and fight for our position. Yes, we do. I'm telling you as a person who is a minority in this country. I love Ben. Ben is my man. I love him. I love him to death. But I just want you guys to understand something. When you're out there on your high horse, you, Kyle Kulinski, all you other people out there on your high horse, and this is all a joke. Kyle Kulinski has nothing on the line here. I want you to understand that. Ben has nothing on the line here. Yeah, I know. That's because you're privileged, Ben. That's you exactly right, because you're not going to lose shit if this country turns on trans people and blames them for everything from the economy to Russia to everything else. You're going to be fine. So you get to say, I'm not giving them shit, because you've been raised in a privileged position your entire experience in this country. So that's how you're going to go in this situation. That's exactly what I said. That this movement is led by people exactly with that mentality. And that's why we're going to lose for the next decade until we grow the fuck up. But if you're in the community, statements like this might make you feel good. It might make you feel good. This statement like this, don't platform Tucker. Hello, Ben. Tucker Carlson is the most famous late night talk show host in the world. His week-old reruns destroy CNN primetime. So when you say don't platform him, all you're saying is don't put out a contrary LGBT voice that can smash libs of TikTok and show it to be the bullshit that it is. Don't do that. Don't platform him. He's already platformed. But you're speaking from your privilege, man. This is exactly what I've been talking about. You're speaking from your privilege here. I really like Peterson, but my wife asked me a question that shook me the other day. How many trans people are now more likely to commit suicide because he and me pushed them over the edge? I mean, look, as a part of a marginalized community, I got here when I was 5 years old, and I got welcomed to the country by being called a nigger by the kids at school. I'm sorry. That doesn't resonate with me, man. That doesn't resonate with me. What resonates with me are laws. Okay, I don't believe that these people... Look, I'm sorry. I get that trans people have been persecuted, but there's a lot of people in this country have been persecuted, and those demographics, we're not all jumping off bridges. So that doesn't resonate with me. I don't care about that. The bigger thing that I'm caring about here is... in this exchange between JP and Kyle Kulinski, there was so much that Kyle Kulinski was missing because he's young and he doesn't have any kids. So there's a lot of things that went straight over his head because he didn't feel the weight or the gravity of it. Why do you keep giving the right room? Every time you make concessions to the right, we lose ground. We don't have time for centrism, not a single second. That's very nice, Ben. That's very nice. I don't know if you realize this, but we just recently had Donald Trump as a president after 8 years of Barack Hussein Obama. And on top of that, we have another Republican in the White House right now by the name of Joe Biden. You know he's a Republican. After Roe v. Wade got passed, now listen, everybody knows how I feel about Roe v. Wade. This motherfucker and his establishment, Pelosi was out there with Cuellar, whatever his name is, who's pro-life. He's on my side on the issue. He was with... Pelosi and them were pumping Cuellar against the progressive who barely lost, which means if Pelosi would have thrown her weight around with her, she would have won. So we have been dominated by Republicans for the last, 20 years. We've been dominated by the right. What are you talking? So we had George Bush for 8 years, and then we had Barack Hussein Obama for 8 years. At the end of Barack Obama's term, he said, I'm basically a Republican. Then we had Trump, then we have Biden, and now we're going to get DeSantis or Trump. Your plan isn't working. The right has a stranglehold on this country. So we have to think logically. We've got to use strategy. And we can't just be so idealistic about everything. Stop it. Yeah, exactly, Country Rose. There are Republicans. Exactly. These are Republicans. That's the country you're in. That's the real world. You get to say all this shit, Ben, because nothing is on the line for you. Yeah, I don't even know if they're Republican light, bro, because honestly, I wouldn't have supported Cuellar, and I'm the most radical pro-life person on the fucking internet. I wouldn't have supported Cuellar even after the Roe decision. And then on top of that, they had another Supreme Court justice out there. It's ridiculous. Vin, why are you making it seem like the right is destroying or harming this country, though? Well, Jay, we had the war in Iraq, which was almost unilaterally constructed by the right. The war on terror, which cost us about $8 trillion, 20 years. We killed over 1.5 million people, creating the image and likeness of God because of right-wing policies. Those are facts. We spent $8 trillion on a bullshit war. We shouldn't have been in Afghanistan. We had no reason being in Iraq. We're supporting the Saudis in Yemen, and we're still deploying assets to Yemen. That's public source knowledge. All of these have been initiated by the right in this country. That's a fact. That's incontrovertible. So the right has, on top of the corporate bailouts and things like that, the right has done some pretty injurious things to this country. On top of that, they have absolutely no solution for healthcare in a post-COVID America, by the way, in which that virus is not going away. It's going to be systematic and seasonal, just like the flu. And the right has no answer for that. So I do think that the right has done some serious damage to our country. And yes, Barack Obama on paper was a Democrat, but by his own admission is a Republican. He said it himself. And Biden, about to take the baton from Trump, told all those Wall Street people, nothing is going to fundamentally change. So I take that to mean we have been under right-wing rule in this country for damn near 20 to maybe 30 years, a person could argue. So when I look at the major moments in my life, the right has been behind a lot of it. So that's my understanding of the right. I will say, again, Barack Obama is technically a Republican, but if Barack Obama was honest on his Twitter feed, he would be banned from Twitter. That's what I believe. He is so far away from how young progressives think that I do believe he would get himself canceled on Twitter if he said what he actually believed. So, anyway. All right, I'm going to leave you guys with one more video as to why I've been sounding the alarm and screaming into the wilderness. And you know what? Maybe all the people that are telling me I'm crazy for trying to defend folks. Maybe they're right, and this is just the way it's supposed
Hillary
to be.
Clinton is catching a little bit of heat from the.
I want you guys to listen closely. To what Hillary Clinton is saying. This video is about 2 weeks old, okay? I want you guys to listen very closely to what Hillary Clinton is saying.
general left after she critiqued Democrats in an interview with the Financial Times. She was speaking with Edward Luce, and in that interview, she talked about the consequences of Democrats losing the upcoming elections. Of course, there was a lot of fear-mongering about the right wing and what they want to do in dismantling our democracy. This is the reporter, Edward Luce. I say that Democrats seem to be going out of their way to lose elections by elevating activist causes.
Okay. Listen to this. I say that Democrats seem to be going out of their way to lose by elevating activist causes. Which activist causes?
Notably, the transgender debate, which are relevant only to a small minority. What sense does it make to depict J.K. Rowling as a fascist? To my surprise, Clinton shares the premise of my question. And Hillary agrees by saying, quote, "We are standing on the precipice of losing our democracy, and everything that everybody else cares about then goes out the window. The most important thing to do is to win the next election. The alternative is so frightening that whatever does not help you win should not be a priority."
Now, I believe that principle, but her application is abandon trans people. That's what she's talking about in the mainstream. Abandon them. What I'm saying is abandon this ridiculous idea that we could just let libs of TikTok go and not answer for it on right-wing outlets because we shouldn't have to defend ourselves. Ridiculous. You guys only have each other. You see these people? They're going to abandon you. The right wing is setting you guys up as a sum total of everything that's wrong in this country. And people are already mad as hell because of the situation that we're all in. And now on top of this, the left wing, a very influential person, is saying we need to cut bait with these people. And make no mistake, when they get massacred in the midterms and the little Roe v. Wade bump didn't go as planned, because this anti-trans stuff is going to intensify. These right-wingers are going to create more and more situations in which they're going to construct and manufacture more panic situations to get Susie to get the fuck out of her house and vote on that Tuesday. And this woman is already telling you, you're the first group of people we're going to throw under the bus. So if you guys don't figure this shit out for yourselves, you're going to be alone. They're going to blame the whole thing on you when they get massacred in the midterm. And then by the time of the general, forget it. There's going to emerge a new pragmatic Democrat whose common sense when it comes to the trans question. Watch. I'm calling it right now. They're going to call it common sense liberalism or progressivism or whatever. They're going to say it's common sense progressivism, and they're going to leave you guys behind. And all the fucking progress you've made is going to go out the window because, as she said, you are a small fraction of the community. So go ahead and listen to Ben Webb and tell you we're not going to kowtow to the left and we don't have to do this and this is unfair. Go for it. All them cis white men that are gassing you up like that are not going to deal with the fallout. You're going to deal with the fallout. Unbelievable. It's right in front of you guys. Why am I the only one that's exercised about this? I don't even have a dog in this fight. But there is the setup, guys. You watch. It's going to be practical progressivism. And don't you think for a second that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to be loyal to you. Please. She's going to have one meeting with Pelosi, and mark my words, she's going to be at the head of the practical progressive movement that takes trans people and shoves you guys the fuck out because you're a very small demographic. Y'all better wake up. You got no friends. It's the same thing I tell black people, politically speaking. You have no friends. Don't be stupid. All right. The funny thing is, Vin and I recognize the same exact problem. My solution is to vote them out. And Vin is like, go on their shows and be nice. You're not going to vote them out, Ben. With your silly, we don't need to be nice to them. We don't need to appeal to suburban Susie. When I was out there doing jihad for the pro-life movement, man, I knew who my audience was. I did training sessions with people to understand what the audience was. We had videotape conversations with people, and I would show people this is how you do it. We would train people to think about the way that our opposition thought. Because we knew the entire zeitgeist was against us. So we had to understand the other. And we had to find a way to speak their language and communicate our perspective in a convincing way. Now you're telling these people that they don't need to do that. And you're saying it from a position of safety. All right. Well, there you go, guys. I will never understand. I will never understand this whole situation. At all. But if you're a praying person, whether or not you believe trans people are in the will of God or not, at minimum, if you're a praying person, you have to at least admit that those folks are in trouble, and you ought to pray for them, that God will preserve them and protect their minds from the shit that's about to happen. I love you all. I do. Especially you, Ben. Hold on. Michelle said something. I gotta check on what Michelle said. Before you sign off tonight, I want to let you know how proud I am of you as your little sister. And sorry, know my tears and past as a young girl immigrated to America. Yes, Michelle, I appreciate that. And I also love you, and I'm extremely proud of the young lady and mom that you are becoming, and your bravery and all the rest of it. I appreciate it. I really do. And the last thing I'll say is I don't know who Miss Country Rose is, but she definitely needs to have the last word, because I love it when people can summarize what I've been saying for 2 hours in a single sentence. And she did in 2 sentences. She did a really good job. Politics is not for personal expression. It's for winning power. That is correct. That is correct. Politics is not for personal expression. It's for winning power. And that, dear listener, is all we have to say. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. If you're going to Walmart, go in and out. Practice situational awareness. Know your surroundings. Don't have your headphones in your head while you're going shopping or anything out there. Keep your head on a swivel. Get into your vehicle. Get home to your family. Get home to your crew. And inshallah, we'll all be alive